We're back with David Murray, and I want to say a quote to you that you wrote, and I want to hear your response to this. It says, "We don't have to serve, sacrifice, or suffer our way to human or divine approval." That's a huge statement when we really understand what it says. Talk about that for a second.
And it's because Jesus has served and suffered and sacrificed his way to divine approval.
Yeah, but we still need to do it, don't we?
We do, but you know, at the end of every day we look back, and some of us are perfectionists.
Yeah.
So that no matter how much we do, we feel miserable. We feel, I have not done enough. We get up in the morning and we think of all that we have to do, and it's intimidating and makes us anxious. But if we could, at the end of each day and at the beginning of every day, remember Jesus has done it all. It covers, his perfection covers all our imperfections. We still serve and we still want to do all that we can for the Lord, but knowing it's his perfection that is going to cover all our imperfections. His suffering is going to save us from all our self-destroying pace. That changes the way we get up in the morning. Mm-hmm. That changes the way we go to bed at night. If I'm ending the day thinking about the perfection of Jesus rather than all my imperfections.
Sometimes that's easier said than done, isn't it?
It is very easy to say.
It's one thing to know something, it's another thing to apply it. But you talk about rest and creating Sabbath and saying no. Those things will often cause us to feel guilty because we're not doing enough. Now you got to deal with guilt. You know, how do you deal with all of that stuff? How do you get through and wrap your head around that this is okay?
I think the important thing there is to distinguish between false guilt on the one hand and true guilt on the other.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guilt that we feel is false. It's based on wrong expectations of ourselves, people's wrong expectations of us, and a sense of expectation from God that is wrong as well. And so one of the challenges is beating back false guilt with true guilt. So we should actually feel guilty if we are not spending time with our family, if we are not taking a day off a week, if we are not sleeping as we should. And I think that's true guilt that will help us shrink false guilt and therefore bring peace into our souls. And that's a lifelong battle. It's substituting our expectations, God's expectations, false expectations from God, with true expectations from God and his word.
It really is. It's seeing the world a little bit differently than maybe our culture today wants us to see the world. I mean, we live in a world of social media, of walking around with our lives in our hands, and we can at any moment be accessible, and somehow we think that that's the right way to live. Yet God is kind of asking us and suggesting and writing and saying, hey guys, I got another way. Slow down a little bit. That will cause us to burn out. You know, but this isn't a problem just within the church, is it?
No.
This is not a God problem or a Christian problem. This is a problem that permeates its way through the entire culture.
Yeah. And that's why I think the gospel has such an opportunity in this culture, because it comes to weary people, people who are burdened, people who are being broken by the pace of life and all the expectations and by events of life. And it's saying, through Jesus, come and he will give you rest. You look at the life of Jesus, it wasn't a hurried life. He had time for friends, he had time for rest, he had time for going apart. And if he needed it, how much more do we? And he's showing us a better way to live, a happier way to live, a more joyful way to live. And as he did at times, enjoying saying no as well. And it's so combined. Be still and know that I am God. In that stillness, God speaks, God draws near, and we enjoy him.
You know, the grace-paced life, I love that, just that phrase, because I think it's so important for us to really understand what that means. But you said something that I want to repeat. This offers weary men a hope for the future. I think when we got caught up, I know for me personally, when I got caught up in the doing and acting, I felt like there was no hope. But you're saying this kind of a life actually does offer hope.
Hope and joy. It's one of the joys of my life is helping men through a reset process. And I encounter men, as I encountered myself, broken and bruised and battered and thinking, I can't live like this anymore. I've had men saying to me, I've asked God for a heart attack so that I could stop. A heart attack that I'd survive.
Right, right.
So that I could just stop. But we can stop. We can say no. There are things we can do. And my joy is seeing men 3 to 6 months later totally different. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally. Joy and hope fills them again.
Well, this book, Reset, Living a Grace-Paced Life in a Burnout Culture, I want you to know I resonate with this so much. I love this book. I love the message of this book, and I think it's incredibly timely for a culture that so wants us to keep going. This tells us to sit back, rest. There is hope. There is a reset button.
There is.
David, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kip.
I think this is incredible. It's just incredible food for our soul to really get it and to maybe reset our lives. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Please stay with us.